Welcome everybody to the basketball clinic. We have quite a few people on, and we have the coaches and officials, and so we'll just go ahead and get started. And so once again, every time, as you guys know me, please ask questions. You can put them in the chat, and Dana and Nate will be looking at those and reading those, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. But probably by the end, we'll have all the questions, and then we can also open it up as well. A big thank you to Wilson Holland, who is here, and he will be our clinician today for the rules. But I will go ahead and get started in a little bit of the COVID-19 changes and some upkeep. So Nate, if we want to go ahead and go to the next slide. As you know, finally, March 22nd is your start date. I think some of you probably never believed it was going to happen. And every time on my videos, I would say, we're going to play sports again, New Mexico. And I'd always get some email or something like saying, yeah, right, Sally, do you really believe we're going to play? And here we are. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for not giving up the hope. And we are playing again. You know, one thing I've been saying now, instead of saying we're going to play sports again, New Mexico in the 2021 school year, now what I want to tell you is we have a start, and how we act and follow the governor's orders will determine how we're going to finish. So just remember that, but we can start, but the plug could be pulled out from under us anytime. So we want to make sure that we do this right so we finish correctly. You will need 5 days of practice, so you are able to play your first game on Saturday that's March 27th. The athletic directors were given the go-ahead today in order to start scheduling. Games must be played in your region. So we do not need to think about seating and selection or max preps rankings or anything like that. You need to find the teams in your region and keep your schedules in that area. We're not going to be able to go out, across the state to play somebody. So stay within your region. So some people that you may never have a home and away with, you may want to do a home and away with this year that are not in your classification or in your district. So just think about that. You've got to change your mindset, coaches, when it comes to your schedules. We will have no scrimmages this year. So when March 27th rolls around, officials, you got to be ready to go. We will not be able to have officials going to practice, and you just have to be ready to go. It happened in the fall, and it worked out well. We're just going to have to do it this way. We cannot get officials to go to practice. First off, we don't have enough officials to go to every single practice. And secondly, we cannot bring that person inside a school facility that's not part of the school. So there's 2 reasons we cannot do that. Next slide, Nate. As of today, as of right now, today, and I want to make this very clear, we have not been approved to have a state championship. Either have the fall sports. Okay, so as you're thinking about schedules and everybody's thinking max preps and where am I going to be ranked and this and that, we have not been approved for that. The governor's orders mandate that we play our games within our region or our districts. And if you have a state championship, you are going outside your region to play somebody. So I have made sure that I am asking for that part of the governor's orders to allow us to play games outside our region when it comes to state championship. So still working on that. Right now, again, it's not about the blue trophy. I remember when we were stuck in this COVID, everybody would say, well, we just want to play. We just want to compete. We just want to be with our kids. We just want to play. And right now in fall sports, that mindset has totally turned around. And now, again, it's about how do we qualify, about the blue trophy, who I play. We need to try to get that out of our minds at this point. So I will let you know if we are going to have a state championship. If we don't have a state championship, we'll do a culminating event some way in a regional format, but we're still trying to have a state championship. Go ahead, Nate. If we have a state championship, district champions automatically qualify, and that is the regular season. We will not have a district tournament. So, and we will only be taking 8 teams, not 16. Seating and selection would happen on a Saturday. So if you are scheduling, you need to make sure your games are done before 4 o'clock on that Saturday, May 1st. Quarterfinals will be at home sites on Monday, Tuesday. Semifinals will be at home sites on Wednesday, Thursday. And if possible, we will bring everybody to the pit on Friday and Saturday in order to do the final championship games. So even if we do have a state tournament, it's still not going to be the same where we go to one venue and we have that whole week where we all watch basketball. So it will be still a little bit different with that. Any questions so far?
So Sally, there are 2 questions in the chat. The first is it safe to say that if a district game is 4 hours away, we can play another team that is 4 hours away?
No, we will work with your district. What we have done is we've done neutral sites. So if you're in a district that is very, very far away, then we will have to work with you as to where that game will be scheduled. Usually in basketball, we're not that far away. We do have some outer liars maybe, so make sure you give me a call or have your athletic director give me a call on that. But no, you cannot be in a bus for 4 hours at all.
And then what are our regions?
Region, Southeast region, Northeast, Northwest, Central, Southwest. Just think about schools in your area that you can play. And if you have any thoughts, your athletic directors understand that already. So you need to get your AD, should be the ones working with you to schedule. So talk to the athletic directors.
And then finals in March or May?
In May, did I say March? Oh, quarterfinals, look, I put March 3rd or 4th. May 3rd or 4th. So quarterfinals, whoops. Hey, it was a subliminal message hoping that COVID was gone, but it is May 3rd or 4th, 2021. Well, my bad on that.
And that's all in the chat, sorry.
Okay, let's go ahead and change that. Make sure, again, your game schedules get on Max Prep like usual. Scores are posted immediately after the game. The rosters need to be on Max Preps on April 2nd. And it is not required to have a picture this year. So we still need schedules, we need rosters, we need scores. Picture, that is up to you, whether you want to put one on Max Preps or not. Some are not taking pictures, some are. It's up to you as to what you would like to do there. Next slide, Nate. Just a reminder, varsity are white at home. Away must be darker color of the school or black, and there's no exceptions to that. The grays and golds do not work when it comes to away, and they will not work at home. So this is nothing new. I just wanted to remind you of this, this rule. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about COVID changes that we're going to have new this year. First off, the virtual parent video that you will need to have a parent meeting, or you don't have to have a meeting. There is a video I'm going to send out tomorrow that you will need to make sure your parents watch. It will have everything they need to know on COVID, on the changes this year. It will help you explain to them all the different changes. So I will have that link out to you tomorrow and to your athletic directors. And you don't have to meet with the parents. Of course, everything's virtual, but they at least need to watch this video prior to the season. So that will come out to you tomorrow. Now, 100% mask wearing. I do not, guys, and this is very, very hard for me to tell you, but 100% mask wearing. And if you allow your kids to run up and down without their masks, then it's gonna come right back onto you. The masks that are going underneath the chin, that is not, a mask going underneath the chin means a kid is literally put it in underneath his chin. I can understand if they're running up and down and it goes from his nose to underneath his nose. And then when it was a timeout, they put it back up. But anything that's going way down past the mouth means either that the mask does not fit and it's not the right one he should be wearing, or they're just blatantly doing it. Now, I talked to some of you coaches before on a coaches meeting, and there's been some AAU tournaments or some tournament games that should not be happening around the state, but that's neither here nor there, that I'm not involved in that. And coaches are allowing kids to put that mask underneath the chin. That happens and we will not be playing. So we need to know this right now. I don't know. I don't care if you agree with the governor, you don't agree with the governor, you don't want to wear masks. Whichever your opinion is, we have to do this in order to participate. So just try to get it out of your head. It is what it is, and we're playing again. And if this is the way we could get to play, then we're going to have to do it. Like I said, all the games should be in your region. We have no tournaments this year. We have no overnight stay. So it's basically just go and play a team, all levels, and then come back. And that's what the season will look like. And we need to make sure we're social distancing as much as possible at all times. We just need to keep those kids separated in practice. You're practicing, but if they're on the sideline, separate them a little bit. You don't know if somebody is sick or isn't sick or what's going to happen. So just separate them as much as you can whenever you can. They just need to get used to that. Okay. Next slide.
And Sally, there are some questions in the chat. Do you want to wait or?
No, go ahead. We can do them.
So the first one, football ends April 3rd, tryouts the following week. Soccer ends April 8th through 10th, tryouts the following week. Can we add players to the roster after April 3rd?
Definitely. Add players to the roster. I encourage you to work out with the other coaches and at your school to how do you make this work for kids to maybe be able to practice a little bit and do both. If they come from a fall sport right to basketball, they don't need that 5-day period. They're already ready to go. So work it out and see how you can make this happen for these kids. They've been through so much, and the last thing they need is they don't need coaches arguing about when they practice, what they do, fall versus winter. We all need to work together for the good of kids with this. All right?
And then this actually brings up a point just because of who asked the question. If you all are on here and you have not entered your full name, please make sure you do that for the sake of attendance. The person that asked this question has a first initial and a last name. We need to know who you are. So if you can change that, if you don't know how, send me a chat and I'll do that for you. But this person's question is, will there be consequences for not wearing a mask?
Well, I'll tell you the first time what I'm going to ask officials to do if there's kids that are defying them and they say, hey, put up your mask and it's constant, then that kid will just go out of the game. And if I get a report from officials or others that people are not wearing their masks, then we just won't play. That team will not play. So it's not going to be, let's put a slap on the hand or whatever. We have to wear masks. And that's all there is to it. And I know there's some people that are trying to get an edge by not wearing them and whatever. Everybody's wearing a mask, so do it. And I will tell you what, the best fall sport right now that is doing the best job with masks is cross country. And if a cross country runner can go 3 miles with a mask on and it not going below the nose, there's no excuse that a basketball player can't run up and down.
Hey, real
and
quick.
I know you're going to say it's a little bit different. It could be a little bit more strenuous. Guys, I've done both sports. So you can make this happen. It's just a matter of you want to make this happen. So yeah, the consequences is we will get out. We will not play if that's the way it's going to have to be. But I don't think that's going to happen because I know you guys want to play. So let's just let it happen. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, you do not have to put your name in the chat box. What Dana is asking is for you to change your name in the participants list. The chat will not help us track your attendance. So do not put your name in the chat. You can, if you're having trouble, send Dana a private message and she'll change it.
Thank you.
All right.
And then there was a question that I answered in the chat, but for the purposes of the recording, I'll read it out loud. Can we use officials from out of state? Yes, you can, but they still have to be registered here in New Mexico, minimally as a reciprocal official. And it's a $20 registration fee. So the example was Raton using Trinidad refs. That's absolutely fine, but they do have to go through our registration process, and you can send them to us. And back to you, Sally. Do the masks have to be a certain color to coincide with uniform codes?
Not at all. Not at all. Just make sure they fit. And you know what? It's kind of like shoes. I know a lot of you guys have team shoes, but I would tell you what, that was one thing that when I was coaching and when my sons were playing and everything else, if they had white feet, the shoes that you wear weren't working for them. It's the same thing with the mask. Don't worry about color. Don't worry about anything else like that. People have different faces and they need different masks. Just make sure that they fit, that they're not falling down. That's the best way. So there's no color restriction when it comes to masks. Also, I saw in the chat about quarantine. If somebody goes out of state, right now we follow the governor's orders, and the governor does not have you having a quarantine for 14 days from out of state.
Is there a plan as vaccinations increase, especially for fans who can produce their vaccination cards?
We follow the PED, and we'll talk about spectators right now, but anything with the vaccines will have no bearing on anything at this point.
And then this is two different questions, but I'll roll them into one. Who is policing the mask situation, and can officials enforce this with a substitution or delay of game?
Well, I was hoping that it would not be an officials issue, that the coaches will take care of it, and that's who should be taking care of it from the beginning, that it should be on the coaches. However, in some of the fall sports, we're finding out that officials are having to step in. Officials, if it is blatant, it's below the chin, if it's constant and they're not even trying to pull it up, then have them substitute, send them out of the game and have the coach substitute. And then let us know the issues you have with that team when it comes to mask wearing, if you have any issues. As far as spectators, we are, as you know, basketball is an indoor sport. We are having to follow the governor's orders when it comes to the color of the counties for spectators. So at this point, if you are in a red or yellow county and the game is being played in a red or yellow county, there will be no spectators at all in the gym. If you are in a green or turquoise county, then there will be spectators allowed. Green county is 25% and turquoise is 33%. So as of right now, the majority of the state is in yellow. So there will not be fans in the stands during that time. I am pressing these parents and these communities that we need to turn these counties from yellow to green. Coaches, you need to start getting the word out there because we want our kids to be able to have their parents in the stands. So get that word out there. It's going to be a community effort to make sure that we can turn these counties to green. Also work with your athletic directors to make sure that streaming is set up in those gyms so that the parents can watch their kids. And it is up to you in the regular season what streaming platform you have. They are doing that right now in volleyball, so you should be covered, but just make sure you have everything squared away so those parents can watch the games from home if you're in a yellow county or red.
And Sally, there's a question, what about kids who have medical exemption excluding them from wearing a mask? How does that apply to games?
All players, all coaches, all officials must wear a mask. Now everybody's going to say, well, that's harsh for the kid that cannot wear a mask. From the Department of Health, the sports medicine, our sports medicine advisory, from the medical team of the governor, all that communication has come down. And if a kid cannot wear a mask, then it is not safe for them to be in this environment. So if they have underlying conditions where they either have severe asthma, or something, then they should not be in an environment where they are with sweaty people, contact sport indoors. So the medical teams of both the governor and the NMAA have said that it is best that they just not participate this year. So it's all mask wearing for everybody.
And then since no color restrictions are enforced on masks, and I'm assuming for players, can there be a design on the mask?
It can be a design. We're not worried about masks. All I'm worried about is that mask fits appropriately that they wear.
And officials, yours should be solid black. The only thing that should be on an official's mask would be a manufacturer's logo if you've got an Under Armour or a Nike or Puma or whatever you've got.
Okay.
And that's it in the chat, I think, Sally. If I missed anybody, please re-enter your chat. It got a little crazy there for a minute.
All right, Nate, next slide. So when it comes to the COVID-19, we will work, back up. When it comes to COVID-19, we will work with the Department of Health. Actually, you will. If you have a COVID-19, a kid with COVID, you will make sure your athletic director knows. You have protocols at your school for this. The nurse is probably the one who will get all of these, and they will be the ones that call the Department of Health. Right now, what we are seeing is that it is mostly a 10-day suspension, quarantine, if you have a positive case or if somebody has been exposed to somebody who has a positive case. I'm going to give you a few examples. We had one today. This weekend, we had 2 teams playing football. On Sunday, we found out that a kid had COVID. So the Department of Health has shut down both football teams for a 10-day period. So even your opponent has to shut down if there's a COVID case. In other situations we've had today, this year, we've had a kid who had a runny nose, kept telling the coaches that they were okay, and ended up that the kid 2 days later had COVID. Therefore, the whole team had to shut down because the kid had been at practice with a runny nose and eventually COVID. So you need to make sure that you are asking these questions as to what kind of health they're going on. Now, with that being said, in other cases so far, we've had right now about 7 or 8 teams that have had to shut down due to COVID in fall sports. In the teams that have had to shut down, they will shut down everybody that kid practices with or plays with. So my suggestion, and again, it's up to you. A lot of you have those floaters, those 5-quarter kids. If you don't have to have the floaters, I suggest that you don't have floaters, because if a floater has COVID or gets exposed, then you have shut down 2 teams, not just 1 team. Smaller rosters are probably better. That minimizes your chance to have somebody with COVID. So the date that, again, but it's up to you. I'm not telling you that the rosters have to be minimal. I'm not telling you you can't have floaters. I'm just giving you ideas and suggestions. It's not a normal year. You have to remember that when you're thinking about it, that if you have the numbers, I would separate your varsities, your JVs, and your C teams from practices. Next slide, Nate. Now, again, to go on this is not a year where you tell a kid to be tough. If a kid has any symptom, I have a sore throat, coach, send that kid home. Don't let him practice. You don't know, hey, he has a runny nose, maybe it's allergies, but what if it isn't allergies? These are the things that this year, I would not punish a student if they miss practice because they are sick, quote unquote sick. If they should not be at any practice, any game, anywhere around the team if they have any symptom or they have been exposed to COVID. So make sure you are asking the questions, talk to your players about this, that they need to do what's right. And when I say that too, they need to do what's right, not only at school, but at home. The parties, the group get-togethers, all of that should be at a minimal, so that helps your team a little bit so they're not being exposed. So just think about things like that. But again, it's your program. You decide what you want to do. I am just giving you some examples of what we have seen in fall sports, that it's happening.
And
Next
Sally,
slide. Go
there's
ahead,
a few
Dana.
questions about exposure. So does exposure include referees too?
Exposure could be referees. We will have to find out with the Department of Health. So if a kid is positive and they believe the referees need to also be quarantined because they were in close proximity, then we will know from the Department of Health on that one. In the football case, they did not quarantine the officials. They just did the teams. So we follow whatever the DOH tells us to do.
Okay, and then what if the opposing team has a positive after a game? Can the other team get tested to clear them before the 10 days?
No, testing does not clear them. So if the other one has a positive and it happened at the game, or then they will shut down both teams. So it just depends on the scenario, but testing will not alleviate the 10-day quarantine that right now the CDC is saying.
You say don't practice together, but yet we will travel together. Will both teams, JV and varsity, have to quarantine if they come up with a COVID, if one team or the other?
Again, depends on how you do the bus. It all depends on the situation, guys. But I'm just, you may have to. The whole program may have to. But maybe, it just all depends.
And last question in the chat two just came in. If an official has been fully vaccinated, does that need to be presented to anyone?
If the official has been fully vaccinated, you don't have to present it to anyone. But if you had a situation where there was a COVID case, just like the football scenario we had this weekend, and they are asking for the officials to quarantine, if you have a vaccine and you're double boosted, then you would not have to quarantine. So that's when that will come into play.
And you just answered the next question, which was if a player or coach tests positive for COVID and the referee has had their COVID vaccines, does the official have to quarantine? So you answered
So
that before you even knew the question was coming.
All righty. Okay, next one, Nate. Hey, do not get comfortable. That's all I can say. That's the best way for me to say it. Do not get comfortable. You need to make sure you maintain the sanitation and all of the proper protocols for COVID-19. In saying that, because it's easy to get so involved in the game and so involved in the coaching part that you forget. You have to remind yourself it's not normal. You need to make sure you sanitize the basketballs. You need to make sure the kids are not, if you go to the next slide, Nate, you need to make sure the kids are not in the locker rooms, all in a group, only individually in locker rooms, small groups only, no showers. You need to make sure you go through all of this stuff. Do not allow, as you know in basketball practice, somebody forgot their practice jersey or something happens and they throw them on the floor. Or somebody picks up somebody else because they turned theirs to green from white and everything else. Do not let them share practice jerseys. If you need a practice jersey in practice and they don't have them, then maybe they don't practice or they don't, I don't know, but do not let them share any clothes, any water bottles, any practice jerseys, shoes, anything. Stay away from that. And also too, the spitting in a sink, the spitting on the side, the spitting all that has to stop. So make sure you always keep up with the protocols for sanitation, the right protocols. Okay.
And then there's somebody in here. Please make sure you check your names on that participant list. Your name right now is E214264. How many days have to pass after a game that will not penalize the other team for a positive test from their opponent?
That will be all from the DOH. So it depends on when the kid tests positive. It depends on when the game was. That's all coming from the Department of Health. That will not come from the NMAA. We just follow what the Department of Health does. Also, we have talked to your athletic directors about making sure they get in contact with every official prior to the game to let them know, will they have locker rooms or not? Where do they park? Where do they enter? Will they have to do a screening at the gym? All officials should be screening themselves prior to getting in the car before you go to the game. And you need to be honest with your screening of yourself. Your temperature checks. Do you have a cough? Do you have a sore throat? Do you have a runny nose? Have you been exposed? All of those questions, make sure you tell yourself that before you do go to the game. And then your athletic director may tell you to ask you to do it again at the facility. Most of them will not, because they're going to trust that you did that on your own officials before you got to the game.
And then there's several questions about officials with access to locker rooms. Sally just kind of addressed that. My advice, officials, is to show up ready to roll. That's what we've told our fall sports officials. You'll probably want to come in your uniform with your jacket on. You know, don't walk in your stripes, but you'll want to come in dressed just in case. Can officials wear gloves while on the court? Yes, you can. Not required, obviously, but if you feel comfortable wearing them, you may wear them. And then, Sally, there's two questions for you. First, do you issue a technical foul if the players don't wear a mask or if they spit on the court?
Well, I would say, first off, if they're not wearing a mask or it's a problem, get them out of the game. Don't do a technical, just have the coach handle it. Just tell them to get them out, get a sub in for a kid. Unless this continues to be over and over and over, then yes. But let's work at the coach, make sure that the kid is doing things right. We'll put it on the coach. So let's not do a technical to start with. Just get them out. If it's constant, and you guys will know what I'm talking about. If it's just blatantly, they're not even trying to wear one, then get them out of the game. Spitting on the floor, once again, I wouldn't say technical. I don't like to just use a technical to use a technical. Talk to the coach, get them out of the game. But coaches, that shouldn't happen anyway. Tell them not to spit on the floor. Just give them that directive and you take charge of that, so the officials don't even need to get involved with that.
And then who is responsible for policing the coaches if they don't keep their masks on correctly?
That would be the athletic director. So there will be an administrator on site. So you need to get with the athletic director. And I trust that the coaches are going to do what they're supposed to do. I would not so much officials, I would just send me an email after the game if a coach is defying those orders. And it's not officials' duty to do the coaches, it's administrators. So just send me an email if we're having problems with a coach wearing a mask.
And I think this is from a coach. How will they use locker rooms at halftime?
Again, that's going to be a site decision. So coaches, it may be that where you don't have locker rooms. The football players are not going into locker rooms really right now at all for a halftime. You may have to go to in a corner of a gym, but we'll need to make sure that the home coach or the athletic director, that they communicate with you prior to the game so you know what to expect, so you can be prepared. We have some locker rooms that are just they're not big enough to social distance in those locker rooms, and you have to social distance in them.
Are gator masks prohibited for officials?
Gators are prohibited, and that's the governor's orders. There are no gators.
And classrooms and hallways are now just 3 feet distance in our school district for hybrid. Practice activity buses should be the same, correct?
You follow the protocols for your transportation as your school. Nothing has been said to 3 feet. The wording is it should be 6 feet, or the wording they say is to the extent possible. Now, the CDC, I hear, came out with something with 3 feet. Our governor has not come up with anything with 3 feet right now. But it is social distance to the extent possible. 6 feet social distancing to the extent possible. Right?
And then last one, in volleyball, before each match, players have baskets full of unsanitized practice balls. Long story short, are we going to sanitize basketballs?
Did she say unsanitized volleyballs?
Yeah.
I hope they're sanitized, because you should be sanitizing balls after every practice. There will be, and I will put this in there will be sanitation of balls. Could be in between the quarters, the timeouts, halftime, but the balls will be sanitized.
And then
Okay.
is the shock doctor mask okay for officials? Yes, it is. I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, so pre-match conference, head coach only at center court with the referee. Okay, so we don't need to bring kids in there. Make sure you're social distancing at the center court. Your team benches, this is what's going to be a little bit different. Your team benches, if you have seen a collegiate game or a pro game, you will see that the benches, the chairs are 6 feet apart from each other. And sometimes it has to be like in rows, because you can't get enough on that sideline. So it could be rows. Some of your kids may be in the first, on the first stands, because you don't have enough room. But one thing, coaches, is the chairs need to be marked, or the kids need to know what chair is theirs, and they're going to go to that chair every time they're in and out of the game. So make sure they have their own chair. At the chair, they have their water, and everything else as well when it comes to the sideline. So some of you, it may not work 100%. You got to just make sure you're social distancing the whole time. The officials table would be the home team score and timer only. A visitor, you need to make sure they're at your bench or by your end. They're not going to be up there at the head table. Those are essential people only at the head table. So your visiting book needs to be on the bench. No handshakes, just acknowledge, wave, say good game. People are wondering, well, why are we doing this even though we've just been in a game with them up and down the court? You know, the best thing to do is, yeah, you've been with them up and down the court, but just, you know, stay away from even more exposure. And yeah, some people say this doesn't make sense, but just wave on this. And I said about sanitizing the balls and social distancing as much as possible at all times.
And there's a slew more of questions. So if an official uses a shock doctor mask, does the whistle need to be covered? Yes, it does. You'll have to put the whistle in a whistle pouch with the shock doctor mask. On a pregame conference, is it the crew chief only, or can all officials be there?
A crew chief only?
And then will the referees and home coach need to clear several basketballs pregame so that kids are not playing with wet balls after sanitization, similar to soccer where the goalie has several balls behind the net?
I would suggest they do that, yes.
Will we allow players in a back row of the bench to stand?
Yes.
Um,
So I tell you, the coaches will know how they want to organize their benches. Some will stand, some will sit, some will be in the bleachers. Just coaches organize how you want them to be when you get to a facility. You want to probably communicate with the team you're going to play, so you need to know. Some of them have wider bench areas that you might be able to do the rows. Some of them do not. So just make sure you communicate with each other as to how to social distance your bench. Thus, another reason too that you don't have that huge rosters this year. That's another reason, because you'll need to be social distancing.
and this may be what you just responded to. Does everyone need to sit down regardless of if the chairs are in rows?
No, they can stand. So if they can stand, If they can sit, sit. If not, they may have to stand. Just be flexible with the situation. There should not be any chairs on the end lines. Okay, so keep them on the sidelines.
And you just answered the next question. Can benches be under the basket?
That is a no. Keep them on the sidelines or start getting them up in the stands.
During pregame, are there any players from each team or just the coaches and the referee?
Just the coaches and the referee.
And then what do officials do about locker rooms at halftime?
Again, talk to the athletic director. Every facility is going to be different. So they may put you in the hall, they may put you in a classroom. Every facility is going to be different. So athletic directors have been told to communicate with you officials prior to going.
And officials, I would highly recommend that your crew chief reach out to the athletic director if you have not heard from them. Make sure as a crew chief you take care of that and just find out about parking, entering and exiting, locker rooms, all that good stuff. And I believe that's it for the chats right now, Sally.
All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, the eliminate the jump ball. I hear coaches go, why are we doing that? We're going up and down, whatever. This is the NFHS rule. Visiting team will receive the first alternating possession. And in overtime, you'll have a coin toss for possession. So the visiting team will get the ball out of bounds to start the game. Next. Mask wearing, we've already answered all these questions, Dana, I think, with the whistles, whatever whistle underneath the mask or electric whistles, and everybody's mask wearing. So let's go to the next one. And of course, guys, I know you're going to compete with class. That's one thing that I thought, wow, we're going to have some great sportsmanship and people are just going to be excited to play. We had this weekend, we had 4 ejections that were battery in 2 sports, and we had fans in the stands fighting on a yellow county with 25% capacity. So guys, we need to make sure COVID, we're doing all of this stuff. We cannot forget the Compete with Class initiative at all. We've been talking so much about COVID and we're forgetting about sportsmanship. You guys know these kids just need to make sure that they're happy they get to play. That's what it needs to be, is we just got to be happy and glad we're playing sports right now. Next. I think that's all I have. So any questions before I turn it over to Wilson Holland for the rules changes? All righty, I think I got them all, Dana, and then I will still be on, of course, after Wilson gets done.
And the chats have been cleared, provided that I didn't miss any. So,
Okay, awesome.
Wilson, I'm pulling up your PowerPoint right now.
Thank you. While Nate's pulling that up, I want to thank Sally and Dana and the Activities Association for allowing me to be a part of this. And obviously Nate Acosta, who Mr. Technology, who runs it all and does an outstanding job. So Nate, thank you. So normally my work days from 7 to 4, other than having activities at night. And, you know, we had daylight savings time and got home last night and slept real well. And all of a sudden I got up this morning, it was 8:30. And I'm like, man, I'm late for work. And I jump up and get out of bed and I begin to rush. And then I realized that Los Angeles School is on spring break. So I was saved by spring break today. So thanks, Nate, for pulling that up. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to discuss the 2021 National Federation of High School Sports rule changes. We'll discuss the rule and the intent. I will facilitate this. I will reach out to Nate and Dana or either Sally if there's an interpretation that is needed that I may or may not know. This first one we want to talk about is the visiting team's jerseys. It's the gray color spectrum chart. Sally just brought this up about home jerseys and away jerseys. So I'm actually going to throw this slide back and let Sally make a comment about this gray color spectrum chart. Nate, Sally still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking at it because I hadn't seen this chart yet here, Wilson. I would say yes. I kind of like the 80% a little bit better than the 70%, but somewhere in this spectrum for away. But again, we are still the darker color of the school or black. So unless your darker color is a gray, then look at the spectrum. If it is not a gray, then you need to be totally in black or that school color. So there's no in between here on 70 or 80%.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. Now we'll get into some rule changes. Rule 2.12.5, timer's duties. Sound a warning signal to announce 15 seconds maximum permitted for replacing a disqualified or injured player, or for a player directed to leave the game, and signal again at the end of the interval. What the rule is saying is, and Nate, again, for interpretation, once a player has been disqualified, or injured is what it's stating. A disqualified player, we're going to notify the player and the coach. Then the official will go to the table and ask the timer to start the clock. And if I'm correct, there'll be a horn at 15 seconds. And when 15 seconds is over, there'll be a second horn.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, Wilson, so what will happen is, like Wilson said, you'll go ahead and the table will notify the official that is the player's fifth foul or that they are disqualified. And at that point, the official will turn to the player, notify the player, their partners, and coach. Once that official returns to the table, they will point to the timer, who will then sound the first horn at point. And you have 15 seconds to bring in that sub. That would be the clarification to that.
Thank you. Next slide. And again, back to reiterate, timers will now sound two signals related to the 15-second maximum interval permitted for replacing a disqualified or injured player, or for a player directed to leave the game. The first signal is sounded at the start of the interval after the official gives the signal to start the replacement period. The second signal is sounded at the end of the replacement interval. And you have the play pick charts that are giving you an illustration of what needs to happen. 2.12.5, the new, it says new timer's duties. The only exception to this procedure is when a player is injured to the extent that a coach or any other bench personnel is beckoned and comes onto the court, and the player must leave the game, unless a timeout is requested and granted, and the team can rectify the situation prior to the end of the timeout, Rule 3.3.6. So again, clarification, if a player's injured and they need a trainer or a coach is beckoned onto the floor, remember coaches, wait till the official beckons you onto the floor and to help your player. And then again, this will be the exception to the 15-second interval. (2.12.5) timer's duties. The intent of the rule change is to avoid gamesmanship and to ensure that the time for replacement required within the rules. Head coaches who do not have a substitute available at the time the second horn sounds are still subject to the direct technical foul as prescribed in Rule 10.6.2. So my experience with this over the years is when a player fouls out, coaches bring other players to the bench and they use it for a timeout. We don't want too many games to be interrupted, and obviously this is not a timeout. We want this is a resumption of play issue and concern, so we want to get the player back in so we can resume play. So the intent of the rule is to make sure that we're following the rule. And again, we're going to give you, officials will give you the allotted time once everybody knows that their players have been disqualified. We will start that timer, and we need that sub up at the table before the second horn sounds, that replacement player.
Right, and the rule change will send. So for many of you that have been around the game a bit, it used to be a 20-second replacement period. So what the rules committee decided to do was just make it simple, because really what it was we pointed to the table, they started the 22nd, and after 5 seconds they gave you the first horn, and then 15 seconds later they gave you the second horn. And so really it was just to make that simple and just do it at 15 and do away with the 20 seconds. So
Awesome. Thank you, Nate. 5412, forfeiture, protest, interrupted game. Article 1, unless state association rules determine otherwise, a game shall be declared a forfeit when A, if a team refuses to play after being instructed to do so by the official, or B, a coach is removed from the premises for unsporting conduct and no authorized school personnel is present to assume responsibility for the team. C, if any player, team member, or bench personnel or coach fails to comply with any technical foul penalty or repeatedly commits technical foul infractions or other acts with major travesty of the game. So the highlighted portion obviously is what we're looking at. And there are some schools where there is only one coach that may be on the bench at that time. So again, if there's no one authorized to fill in for that coach that's been removed, then there may be a forfeiture. Any clarification on that, Mr. Costa? Thank you. 541 and 542 continued. The game shall be forfeit when there is no authorized school personnel available to supervise the team. And if the team to which the game is forfeited is ahead, the score at the time of the forfeiture must stand. If this team is not ahead, the score must be recorded as 2-0 in its favor. And again, is that a rule change, Nate, there?
it is, and that's something I think Sally can speak on. We've had a couple incidents in the last couple of years where there were no coaches in tournament situation, and officials wondered how that game was supposed to end. So I don't know if you want to clarify that, Sally.
Yeah, so it will be where it would be we have to have somebody on the bench. So the game will be forfeited as the coach is ejected. So that will happen. And that just, Wilson, I just thought about this when the forfeit came in. Coach is in a COVID situation, just so you are aware that if your team has COVID, it will not, or you're playing somebody has COVID, it will not be a forfeit. It will be a no contest. So you won't get a loss for it. If it is a district game that you have to cancel, then you will need to try to make up that district game to the extent possible if there's time. Okay? So I forgot to say that to you guys. I just want to make sure I got that out to you.
And Sally, there was a question about authorized personnel. Do they have to be a certified coach?
Well, what we do is we work with the athletic director. If the athletic director can sit in, then that's fine. But if it's not like an athletic director or some of the coaching license, then you can't just get a parent down there. So we do let an athletic director sit in there, even though they may not have a coaching license because they have an administration license. But it just can't be somebody from the stands coming in and it be a parent with that situation. If all else fails, everybody has my phone number or Dana's phone number. Call if you're struggling with it or something's going to happen.
Thank you. Nate, could you go back to that slide? Just wanted to clarify something about it says, if the team is not ahead, the score must be recorded as a 2-0 in its favor. Is there still points used for tiebreakers? Do we still use that within the district? So many points, or we don't use that anymore?
We do. We don't use that anymore. Well, yes, we do when it comes to that, but we still put a 2-0 in there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. 10.6, penalty head coach's rule. Penalty, Article 1, the official may warn the head coach unless the offense is judged to be major, in which case a technical foul shall be ruled. 2 free throws plus the ball for a division line throw in. So what this is saying is if the official deems that the behavior has not reached the level of a technical foul, they now have the ability to issue a warning to that head coach. And then Nate, you can clarify, is that warning going to go in the book, or what is that?
That is so correct. And all the rules committee did there was add something that we were already doing anyway, was giving warnings and putting it in the book. Now they've just put it in writing, and we can actually warn you and put that in the book. And it could be just a verbal warning, or it could be a warning that you put in the book. I recommend that you put that warning in the book.
And again, this warning has nothing to do with them out of the coaching box. This warning could be for behavior, unsporting behavior within the coaching box. Correct, Nate?
Correct.
Thank you. Again, 10-6 penalty head coach's rule. The penalty for a head coach in violation of 10-6-1 may include a warning unless the offense is judged to be major, in which case a technical foul shall be ruled. Previous language indicated the official must warn the head coach. The new wording clarifies that an official is not required to give a warning to the coach prior to issuing an unsporting technical foul. Thanks, Nate.
So there is a question in the private. It says, can you clarify the warning is not required to prior to issuing a technical foul? And that would be correct. You don't have to give a warning. If the offense is egregious enough, we can issue the technical foul without warning.
Editorial change 562, exception 4, beginning, ending a quarter or extra period. If a technical foul occurs after the ball becomes dead to end a quarter or extra period, the next quarter or extra period is started by administering the free throws. If the fourth quarter or extra period ends and the score is tied, the free throws will start the extra period. If the score is not tied and a result of the free throws would tie or win the game, the free throws are administered as part of the preceding quarter/period. Do you have any questions about 562? Awesome. Next slide. Updated language related to the ending of games and extra period. If a technical foul occurs after the ball becomes dead to end a quarter or extra period, the next quarter or extra period is started by administering the free throws. If the fourth quarter or extra period ends and the score is tied, the free throws will start the extra period. If the score is not tied and the results of the free throws would tie or win the game, the free throws are administered as part of the preceding quarter or period. If the result of the game is not an issue, then no free throws need to be shot. And just to clarify, if the result of the game is not an issue, then no free throws need to be shot. (2021) emphasis, points of emphasis, POEs. Block charge. By definition, a block or charge foul occurs when a defender impedes his or her opponent to stop him or her from going in that direction. If she does not obtain a legal defensive position and contact occurs, it is a blocking foul. Block charge continue. A, the basics. To correctly understand the guarding rule, the following points are critical. To obtain initial legal guarding position on a player with the ball. Again, obtain initial legal guarding position on a player with the ball. The defender must get to the spot first without contact. Have both feet touching the floor and initially face the opponent within 6 feet. Does anybody have any questions about that verbiage? That definition, how to obtain initial legal guarding position.
And the key, and I believe it's in one of the next slides, but is obtaining the initial legal guarding position. And it'll talk about jumping or
Maintaining.
Maintaining, stepping backwards.
Nate, just for clarification, on the 2 feet on the floor, that means you cannot have a foot out of bounds?
That is correct.
Okay, so like in the old days when they used to cut off the baseline with 1 foot in bounds, 1 foot out of bounds, that would be a blocking foul, correct?
Correct.
2, once the initial legal guarding position has been obtained, the defender may move laterally or at an angle or backwards in order to maintain a legal guarding position. Keep in mind that when a defender obtains an initial position with both feet touching the floor and facing his or her opponent, the defender need not be stationary, but may continue to move in order to stay in front of the person with the ball. Again, to clarify, when we hear people comment on, they're moving, ref, a defender is allowed to move as long as they don't move into the dribbler or the ball handler. So remember that, coaches, a defender may move and still take a charge. Once the defender obtains a legal guarding position, the defender may raise his or her hands in a normal stance or may jump vertically within his or her vertical plane. A defender may turn or duck to absorb the shock of imminent contact. A player is never permitted to move into the path of an opponent after the opponent has jumped into the air. To clarify that, once we maintain legal guarding position, and if a player is airborne, we cannot move it. The defender cannot move at all. If a defender is going to try to obtain legal guarding position, they must obtain it before the offensive player becomes airborne. 6, a player who extends an arm, shoulder, hip, or leg into the path of an opponent and causes contact is not considered to be in a legal guarding position. Guarding the player with the ball. Points to remember when a defender is guarding the player with the ball. This is with the ball again, just to clarify that. Time and distance are of no consequence. If the defender gets to the spot first and is in a legal guarding position, the onus is on the person with the ball. A defender is never permitted to move into an opponent and thus cause the contact. Three, if a player with the ball gets his or her shoulders past the front of the torso of the defender and contact occurs, the defender has blocked and a foul must be called. In order for the defender to re-obtain a legal guarding position, all guarding the person with the ball criteria must be met. So again, if I'm a dribbler, I'm head and shoulders in front of that defender and there's some contact, then we possibly will have a blocking foul.
So Wilson, there's a question in the chat. What about change of direction just before point of contact? Would that constitute legal guarding if they change direction on a Euro before contact and the charge attempt is not square?
Great question. Again, on a Euro, as long as that player is not airborne, if that defender gets to that spot first and does not initiate the contact or slide into that Euro step or into that player, then there still could be an offensive foul. If not, then it could be a blocking foul. So a defender must have 2 feet on the floor facing their opponent, and they can move sideways, they can move at an angle, and they can move backwards, as long as they don't move into the ball handler. Hopefully that answered your question. When an offensive player receives a long pass with his or her back turned and places 1 foot on the floor and crashes into a legally set defender, it is a player control foul. It seems many officials are calling this a traveling violation, which is incorrect. So officials, remember this, we have to have courage to call the rules as written. If the defender is legal and there's a long pass and the offensive player has control of the ball, takes a step, runs over that defender has worked really hard to get there, have a foul on that. Majority of the times, those things are not traveling, and we don't want to get into that habit of kind of making up something because we don't want to put a foul on either players. How do I know that? Because I've done it before, and it ain't right. Block charge, guarding the player without the ball. So we just talked about guarding the player with the ball. Now we're going to talk about guarding the player without the ball. and what the parameters are and the guidelines are, because they are definitely different. So here we go. Time and distance are the key factors here. The distance allowed depends on the speed in which the offensive player is moving, with the distance never to exceed 2 strides, regardless of how fast he or she is moving. Once a defender has met the criteria of both feet touching the court and initially facing the opponent, the defender has obtained a legal guarding position and may move the same as if he or she were guarding the player with the ball. Next slide. The definitions for blocking foul or charging foul are found in Rule 4.7. Obtaining and maintaining a legal guarding position on an offensive player with and or without the ball has been a point of emphasis over the years. Yet this remains one of the most difficult plays to coach and officiate. And again, we're all learning that we're real good when we referee the defender first and make sure that we understand if did the defender initially obtain legal guarding position, and did they maintain legal guarding position. Again, we have a player with the ball and a player without the ball. Use of proper signals in the reporting area. One of the most important tenets of good officiating is good communication. The easiest and quickest way for officials to establish credibility is to effectively communicate with players, coaches, yes, spectators, and the scores table during a basketball game. When officials properly and effectively communicate with all stakeholders during a contest, their judgment is questioned less. Their confidence is heightened and the overall game management is improved. Next slide. Good communication centers on the use of proper signals and mechanics. Signals are verbal and nonverbal means of communication by officials and are required by rule. Each time the whistle is sounded in a basketball game, there is an accompanying signal. Virtually all NFHS basketball-related publications contain the approved list of signals officials should use. Meanwhile, mechanics are the methods of procedures used by officials while officiating a game that will help put the official in the best possible position to provide proper court coverage and to provide the effective communication to the table officials. Nice play picks. Officials are to be professional and consistent in the use of the National Federation of High School Sports approved signals and mechanics. Officials should not attempt to draw attention to themselves by using unapproved, emphatic, or theatrical signals. And I want to comment on that. If we have a play to the basket and we got a blocking foul and it's an N1 and the game's tied and it's fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go, when you count the basket, just count the basket like you would do any other play. Don't come out all excited and throw it real hard, because I'll tell you right now, the other coach is like, well, man, he got really excited to call that N1. So again, treat that like any other play in the game. Score, call the foul, score the bucket, and then move to the table and do your reporting. Again, don't be emphatic or theatrical about counting an N1. Next slide. Adherence to prescribed federation signals and mechanics presents an environment where the officials are in charge and the game is well officiated. Whether calling a violation or a foul, anytime an official blows his or her whistle, he or she also raise his or her hand to stop the clock. All plays, raise your hand to stop the clock for foul or violation. If a violation is being called, the official will extend one arm above the head with an open palm, fingers extended. While if a foul is being called, the official will raise one arm high above the head, the fist clenched. So Nate, just to clarify, on all violations, even not, what about out of bounds? Are we still raising hand, or are we just giving a directional signal?
On all violations, it is a stop clock signal.
Okay. And the ball going out of bounds is a violation.
Correct.
Of the rules. Okay. And there you have the play pick, stop the clock for a foul. Officials are instructed to use proper stop clock mechanic anytime they blow their whistle and follow proper procedures for indicating if a violation has been observed or for reporting the foul to the scores table. When a violation is observed, an official shall complete the following after blowing his or her whistle and stopping the clock. Move towards the area of the violation, signal the nature of the violation, signal direction for the throw-in and the team to make the throw-in by stating the jersey color. Indicate the throw-in spot. You guys all understand the sequence. We've doing a great job of that. And we've always talked about make sure we blow our whistle, raise our hand, color and direction. After officials are responsible, all officials are responsible for contact rulings and all fouls. It is imperative that the following procedures be used in order after an official blows his or her whistle and raising his or her arm to stop the clock, if necessary for player clarification. Delay and extend the other hand palm down towards fouling player's hip, i.e. the old school bird dog. While holding the foul signal, move toward the play and fouling player, stop, verbally inform the player he or she is fouled by stating the jersey color and number. So blow your whistle, you got your arm, your fist clenched up, white 32. Let everyone know at the spot who fouled, and then you can move to the table. Lower the foul signal, indicate the nature of the foul by giving a preliminary signal using the approved federation signal. Indicate what will follow as a result of the foul, throw in, free throws, made basket, etc. After signaling what will result, wait for players to separate, particularly if they are in close proximity to one another, and then move to the reporting area to announce the foul to the scorer. In general, the reporting area is a rectangular area that turns from the middle to the top of the free throw circle on each end of the floor to an area approximately 10 feet towards the scorer's table. The second bullet is saying if there's players on the floor, make sure we don't leave the scene of the crime. Pause for a minute until your partner may come in, and then you can leave and go report. But again, make sure that we stay there for a second, pause, and then we can hustle to the table and report our foul. Once in the reporting area, the official will come to a complete stop before communicating with the official scorers. Slowly state the color of the jersey, the player who fouled, visually indicate the number of the player who fouled using two-handed signal. Right hand shows the 10 digits and the left hand shows a single digit while verbalizing the number to the scorer. Indicate the type of foul committed and indicate what activity should follow. White 32, hit on the arm, 2 shots. For a complete description of all 2-person and 3-person mechanics, please refer to the Federation Basketball Officials Manual.
And just to clarify also, we do have an officials manual that is slightly different, and it really, the mechanics and reporting signals, everything is the same as the Federation manual. The only things that are differences are coverage type things, but everything mechanically is still Federation mechanics.
Awesome. Thank you, Nate. You guys can see the foul reporting area. We need to get there and make sure that the scorer and timer, they're all make sure that they're looking at us with their heads up. That becomes an issue. Make sure you have a conversation with that table. In the case of foul reporting, officials shall wait for players to separate and then move to the reporting area in the middle of the playing court, approximately 10 feet away from the scorer's table. Officials should come to a complete stop before communicating with the official scorer. Make sure you're not a moving target. Hustle up, get in the foul reporting area, stationary, and report the foul. Next slide. Officials are asked to refer to the Federation handbook. Oh, okay. Sorry, Nate. We can move on. Court coverage area. So hopefully the coaches are still on this webinar here. Coaches, you're always asking whose area is that? There it is right there. But I do want to clarify, those are primary coverage areas. Each official may have a secondary coverage area. And on top of that, if somebody does not hit their whistle and there needs to be a whistle, someone else may blow that whistle. But as for primary coverage areas, that's what you're going to get. Officials and coaches, there's the coverage areas right there, so you know who's basically have what. In both two-person officiating mechanics and three-person officiating mechanics, the lead, trail, and center officials each have primary coverage areas for which they are responsible. But I do want to clarify they do have secondary coverage areas also. Across the country, more and more players are being allowed to legally dribble the basketball. Likely a combination of increased viewing of other players and inconsistent enforcement of palming carrying rules by officials has led to the decline in proper fundamentals. Coaches, if you allow this in practice, if you allow this in practice, it's going to continue in the game. So again, if you allow it, you know, you're going to promote it. They're going to do it. That goes with anything else. If we're teaching legal defense, or we're teaching how to block out, and it's illegal, that's going to come and bite you in the backside during the game. So again, as we're trying to implement and call the rules as written, I'm glad we have the coaches on here. Sally has done an awesome job with coaches and officials relationships, but we all need to know what the rules are. Makes us better officials, but it also allows us to coach the games within the rules. Rule 4:14.3, palming and carrying. The dribbler begins by pushing or throwing or batting the ball to the floor before the pivot foot is lifted. Rule 4:15.4b, the dribble ends when the dribbler palms, carries the ball by allowing it to come to rest in one or both hands. And I'm gonna hold it right there, Nate, because I have a question. Can an offensive player start a dribble by pushing the ball down with both hands? Can I hold the ball with two hands and throw it down to the floor and start a dribble?
No.
So I want you guys,
Yes. Yes.
you guys that are saying yes or no, and then some of our referees, get in your rule book and show me where it says a dribble has to start with one hand. Nate, and please help me clarify that, because the rule book I read is not in ours, and I think ours is pretty similar to yours.
It does not say that it has to be pushed down with one hand.
Yeah, so you could actually start a dribble with two hands, throw it to the ground, and it's like any other. So just
Power dribble.
just thought I'd throw that out there. Thank you, Wally. Anything more than a handshake, palm is vertical to the ground, is considered palming. Coaches must teach proper dribbling technique. Officials must adjudicate the rules as written. Next slide. Clarification of intentional and flagrant fouls. There is a distinct difference between an intentional foul and a flagrant foul. A foul should be ruled an intentional foul when a player, while playing the ball, causes excessive contact. An intentional foul should be ruled away from the ball when it's a non-basketball play. These are considered either personal or technical fouls. A flagrant foul is violent in nature or a non-contact play demonstrating unacceptable or uncivil behavior. The penalty for a flagrant foul is immediate ejection. So let's talk about these two once again. It talked about a intentional foul, excessive contact. Okay, an intentional foul, fouling away from the ball. A flagrant foul, violent in nature, or non-contact play demonstrating unacceptable or uncivil behavior. So again, know the verbiage of the two fouls and their difference, and you will be okay. Excessive contact, but it's not violent. If it's violent, then we've got to start thinking of flagrant. Nate, you want to comment on that intentional or flagrant at all?
No, they actually changed the wording, which I'd liked the old wording of a flagrant foul, which was savage in nature, but it is violent in nature. And officials, we really need to do a better job. I know end of the game situation, take fouls, stopping the clock, the jersey grab. Those are the things that we've kind of gotten, for lack of a better word, lazy, and it's just easier to call a common foul. This has been a point of emphasis the last 3 years, if I go back and look. But you know, coaches, if you can help us with this, and game situations, let your players know that, they are to, make an attempt on the ball, or, they can't just go and grab them, or they can't grab the jersey, because those by rule are intentional fouls. And then as far as player safety, I think, and Sally is on, and we probably watched a ton of videos that started with fights last year based off of flagrant contact that was either being called just a common foul or nothing at all. And so officials, we've got to do a better job of really calling these intentional fouls and flagrant fouls to clean up the game and to prevent the escalation of a fight or anything that really ends up on Sally's desk.
Absolutely, Nate. Thank you. And also, if we have a red flag or we deem it's going to be intentional and or flagrant, make sure as a crew we come together and everybody has an opinion. Maybe all three didn't see the contact, but always ask your partners their opinion, especially if it's going to be a flagrant foul and someone's going to be ejected from the game. So I would suggest that the crew come together and everybody have an opinion on the play. Next slide. An intentional foul is a personal or technical foul that may or may not be premeditated and is not based solely on the severity of the act. Again, that's really with any foul. The severity of the contact is not determined if it's a foul. Okay, we don't want to blow our whistle on contact. We want to blow our whistle because of the result of the contact, and it's illegal. Rule 419.4, a flagrant foul may be of a violent or excessive nature. So keep that in mind, violent or excessive nature, or a technical non-contact foul which displays unacceptable contact. Intentional foul, 419 Article 3, an intentional foul is a personal or technical foul that may or may not be premeditated and is not based solely on the severity of the act. Intentional fouls include, but not limited to, contact that neutralizes an opponent's obvious advantageous position, contact away from the ball when the opponent is clearly not involved with the play, contact that is not a legitimate attempt to play the ball, player specifically designed to stop the clock or keep it from starting, excessive contact with an opponent while the ball is live or until an airborne shooter returns to the floor. Contact with the thrower in as in 9-10, penalty 4. (419.4), flagrant foul may be a personal or technical foul of violent, savage, or uncivil nature. There you go, Nate. Or a technical non-contact foul which displays unacceptable conduct. It may or may not be intentional. If personal, it involves, but is not limited to, violent contact such as striking, kicking, and kneeing. If technical, it involves dead ball contact or non-contact at any time, which is extreme or persistent, vulgar or abusive conduct. Fighting is a flagrant act. There's a concern that the lack of enforcement for intentional fouls. Strategic fouling has become part of the end of games, and officials need to understand the difference between common fouls, intentional fouls, and flagrant fouls, and have the conviction to make the correct call. It is also critical for officials to get the first foul, which will help prevent the game from becoming more physical. Call the first foul. Again, thank you. I appreciate your time tonight. If you have any questions, please, in the chat box, we can try to answer those questions. Sally, thank you.
You're welcome.
There
So
were
any questions that we have?
There were a couple that got asked during Wilson's presentation that I thought were more for you, Sally. Let me find them again. So first one is, since the visiting book is sitting on the bench, if there is a discrepancy on a foul or points, how will this be handled? Does the head coach ask the official to stop the game and investigate the discrepancy?
That would be the best way, because the visiting book will not be there. So the head coach needs to talk to the official to get it to look at the discrepancy. Correct.
Okay, and then, sorry, I'm scrolling up. Are schools able to schedule a game in a county that allows participants if the school agrees so that parents can watch in person?
Okay, the rule is if you can play home and away depending on your county. But if two, let's say two schools are in yellow counties, you cannot move that game to a green county in order to have participants. If one school is in yellow and the other school is in green, then you can choose to play at the green county. But you cannot move two from a red, yellow county to another color county just for fans. So that is part of the governor's guidelines.
When will we be changing the basketballs out during the game to sanitize, at every quarter or every whistle?
No, every quarter. Quarters are timeouts. We're not going to stop the game to do that. So quarters are timeouts.
And we had a couple of questions. Will you be sending a copy of the actual PowerPoint slides from your portion of the presentation, Sally?
I will have those posted tomorrow. Nate, if you can remind me, I'll have those posted tomorrow on the basketball homepage.
Awesome.
I did.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I had received a couple uniform questions in the private chat. Undershirts have to be black, white, black, white, or the predominant color of the jersey. So if you're, it has to be the color of the jersey. So if you are at home, you are white, and if you are on the road, you're wearing the color of your jersey. Okay, because you are wearing white at home. So it has to be the color of your jersey. And then sleeves, wristbands, armbands all have to be black, white, beige, or the predominant color of the jersey. So if you're at home, it's either white, black, or beige. If you're on the road, it can be black, white, beige, or your visiting jersey. And everyone on the team has to wear the exact same headband, wristband, knee sleeves, arm sleeves. If there are differences in the sleeves, one's wearing white, one's wearing black, one of them does have to remove, if not both.
And to reiterate, don't worry about the color of the mask. They do not have to match, just they want to make sure they fit. And also black undershirt is not navy blue. So we always seem to have black when we have navy blue. So make sure if you have a navy blue jersey, you have a navy blue undershirt if that's what they're wearing.
Sally, can I ask the clarifying question when it comes to the chairs? Say you have 3 rows of 3, and the first row is those chairs are where the chairs normally are. We're going to allow coaches and players to stand there during that.
They have to be behind. When I say stand, they've got to be away. They cannot be at the sideline. They're going to have to be away to the side to stand.
Okay, so that first row of chairs that are normally where all the chairs are, if they want to stand, they have to be behind those.
Yeah, they have to. And when I'm saying stand, it's the only way I'm saying stand is if there's not enough room for the chairs and they have to be over to the side. Okay. So you should be sitting in the chairs. And I'm sorry, I'm thankful for clarifying that, Wilson. You should have chairs. You should be sitting. Standing should be on the side if there's no room whatsoever, or go up into the bleachers.
Thank you.
And Sally, are we going to realign a district if a team in that district is more than 4 hours, or would the game be played at a neutral site?
You'll need to have them email me directly and through your athletic director.
Can you please go over timeout? 60-second timeout. Are we allowed to have players sit? 30-second timeout. Are bench players allowed to be in the huddle?
Those rules have not changed. Just make sure though in the huddle that you're spacing out a little bit more than you're used to.
What would an official call if player A pulls player B's mask down on purpose? Wilson's laughing, so.
I'm just laughing, guys, because we get a lot of these mask questions, and let me tell you, I don't want the mask to take away from the basketball game. So if we have a kid that's going to try to take somebody's masks down, so that means if they're doing that, they're touching their head and they're doing something that probably should be a foul or a flagrant foul, or if they're doing that. So you've got situations in your rule book to deal with that. But don't focus so much on what are we going to do with the mask if it's below the nose, what are we going to do, whatever. You guys will know, officials, when it's blatant, when it's on the chin, you will know all about that. So just call the game, and then we will deal with it on the aftermath of that.
And Sally,
Right.
do you want to clarify the 60-second, 30-second timeout? By rule, they do not have to sit down on a 60-second, and so.
No, they do not. They do not. Also, let's go back about these chairs, because that's been the whole thing. You need to sit down, just like basketball players do, sit down, unless there's not enough room. There's some gyms, the reason I said that, there's some gyms where there may not even be bleachers behind them, and there's not enough room to have all those chairs. So you might have to be standing on the side for some of you, but you should be seated to the extent possible during the game. If there are chairs, if there's bleachers, if there's a place for them to sit, then have them sit.
And there's a couple of questions that have come in the private chat. Are the phone numbers on the arbiter up to date of schools and athletic directors and secretaries? My immediate response is absolutely not. They change so frequently. We will make sure that we update it the best we can, but we do have a list of athletic director phone numbers that we can get to our officials or email addresses. So that's been a project that we still have not been able to get completed because of turnover. How about Wilson's part of the PowerPoint? Will it be shared? Yes, it will. And that was from an official. All of it will be posted. We'll also send a recording of this video so you can refer back to it. And then Sally, I think you just covered the coaches able to stand. That was in the private chat.
The head coach, that hasn't changed. That rule has not changed there. Okay.
And then standing is not optional if chairs are available.
Right. So you need to go within the rules. When I shouldn't have said the standing. This volleyball, some of them are standing. You guys need to sit with all possibility. If you have to stand because there's not any way, what I'm saying is I don't need chairs right next to each other. You need to spread out, and whatever that looks like, they should be sitting as much as possible. And again, I'm going to go back to think about your rosters. We don't need 20 kids coming in because you guys don't have a JV team anymore. I mean, you got to think about this. This is a little bit different this year. And one thing I don't want you to forget, I know it's getting late here. It's 8:30. I should get you guys off. One thing I don't want you to forget is we are playing again. It's about the social and emotional well-being of kids. All I've heard from you guys coaches is like, we just want to play. We just want to play. So keep that in mind. It's not about the blue trophy. It's about these kids being able to play, and we've got to do it safely. So we need to be thankful that we get to play, and I thank you guys for not giving up.
Ellie, is the coach's box still the same length?
Everything's the same.
Let's see, a lot of good lucks. Are we playing all levels, CJV, varsity, middle school?
It's up to the school. We're allowing all levels to participate. So some schools are opting out of and just playing varsity. Some schools are opting out of middle school. So it will all depend on the school.
And then there was a follow-up to the thing about the 4 hours away. If the district opponent is more than 4 hours, have the AD call or email you. Is that correct?
Have them call or email me.
And then officials, just a note for you all. Just go referee. We've been talking to a lot of our officials for fall, and they're super stressed out until they actually get to their first game or match, and then they realize it's exactly the same thing with a few little changes, and you're wearing a mask. But don't overthink it. Just go referee. Yes, you have a mask on, but don't make it more difficult than it needs to be, would be my advice to you. So just go work. If you have questions that come up around, along the season, let us know. And we'll help you through it. Sally, how many games are allowed for basketball?
There will be 12 games allowed for basketball. That's prior to the last week when we'll have some culminating event. So 12.
Is that all levels?
Huh?
Is that all levels?
That is varsity JV and C team. It's 10 for middle school. So it is all levels because we figured that you would be traveling together or playing an opponent like that. You're not in a tournament situation, so those are all the same.
Okay, and there's a lot of really positive things about we're playing again. Make sure you adhere to protocols so we aren't back at square one. That's what somebody just said. Good advice.
That's the best way to put it. That's exactly right. So
it looks like we got all the questions, and everybody just know, as usual, if you have questions that come up after the fact, feel free to send those to Sally via email or to Nate or myself, and we'll get you squared away. So if Nate and I don't know the answer, we'll get with Sally, and we're a all hands on deck operation at the NMAA. So don't hesitate to reach out. Oh, another question. So are we allowing the scorebook to accommodate more slots than allowed?
guys, we've never had a roster limitation for you guys. The only roster limitation we have is when you get to the district tournament and the state tournament. So play as you can. All I'm saying is I suggest that the rosters not be huge this year because that gives you more chances for kids to have COVID, but that's up to you guys. Okay.
And oops, one more. Is there a deadline for schools to opt out? In other words, will schedules change halfway through the season?
Well, I already asked that from the athletic directors today, who's opting in and who's opting out. So your ADs, if you're changing your mind as to what I gave the ADs today, then you need to let me know ASAP, because it will affect everybody when you opt in and opt out.
And furthermore, there will absolutely probably still be schedule changes anyway. So we're dealing with those in fall sports right now. So even if you've opted in, there will be changes. So everybody be patient on the official side. We're going to be doing assignments about a week at a time. So that is simply because we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves and then have to scrap an entire schedule of assignments. Oh, hang on.
One thing I just want to bring up is officials, that if a school has to all of a sudden quarantine or they got a COVID test case and you were scheduled that week to go play, if you cannot be rescheduled, you will get paid for that game. I'm picking up that tab through the NMAA. So if all of a sudden you get canceled because of COVID, you will get paid. But the officials will not schedule more than a week in advance.
Let's see, if time permits, can a coach ref? Heck yes. If you have time and you want to sign up to officiate, we'll take you with open arms. So we're all about that, recruiting any way we can. Sally, how many games a week, or do you know, will high schools play?
That's up to the school to determine what they're doing.
Are officials likely to be assigned several games in succession at the same venue, including different levels? I would say yes. There's a high percentage chance that you will see that. We have had a lot of officials opt out because of mask wearing or pre-existing health conditions. So we are short. Yes, there are fewer games, but we are definitely going to be a situation where you may see officials 3 games in a row. We've instructed our assigners to make sure to keep officials as close to home as possible, just because of the fact that budgets will be tight. So you may see the same officials more than you're used to seeing them in a year. So this is just how things are going to be for this year, and we'll spread them out as much as we can. But we want to be respectful of school budgets this year. Well, every year, but especially this year.
All righty. We'll let you guys go. Thank you. It's been a long day for all of you. So thank you very much. And let's have a good season, and let's remember what it's about. It's about these kids that have been sedentary for so long, and it's about them having fun and learning lifelong skills. So thank you for everything, guys. And if you need anything, you know my number, you know to call or email. So thank you for everything, and take care.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Dana.
Of course.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great season.
Thank you, Gary Cottam.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Sally.
You bet.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great season.
Thank you, everybody.